The air in the elevator was a sterile, refrigerated void, a perfect capsule of corporate indifference hurtling toward the ground floor. For Scott, it was a momentary sanctuary, a breath of silence after a day spent drowning in the oppressive atmosphere of Astra Corp. Then, the doors, whispering shut on their brushed steel tracks, were stopped. A hand, large and impeccably groomed, sliced through the closing gap, and the world tilted on its axis. Draven Thorn, the CEO, the ghost in this corporate machine, the man whose face was plastered across the news release that had shattered Scotter Eurostrade's world, stepped inside. A jolt, cold and electric, shot through Scotter Eurostrade's veins. In photographs, Draven Thorn was a man carved from granite and ambition. In person, he was a living gravitational force. He was taller, broader, his presence an overwhelming pressure that seemed to compress the very air in the small space. He radiated a quiet, absolute authority that was less about his tailored charcoal suit and more about the predatory grace in his every movement. He gave Scott a fleeting, dismissive glance, Euros the kind a king affords a servant to Euros, before turning his attention to the phone in his hand. Scotter Eurostrade's heart became a frantic, trapped bird, beating its wings against the cage of his ribs. He fixed his gaze on his own reflection in the polished steel, a pale, terrified stranger staring back. He counted the descending flaws, each illuminated number a step closer to escape. 32, 31, 30. Just get to the lobby. Just walk away. You are Stephen Bird. You are a nobody. You are invisible. But the universe, it seemed, had a cruel sense of irony. A perfect storm of cosmic variables, Euros the lingering emotional trauma of walking through his enemy's fortress, the exhausting stress of his undercover mission, and the sudden, shocking proximity of the fated Alpha who had unknowingly fathered his children. Euros converged in a single, catastrophic moment. A faint, fizzing sensation erupted against the skin of his collarbone, one of the cheap, high-strength scent suppressant patches he relied upon chose that exact moment to fail. The change was not subtle, it was apocalyptic. The sterile, air-conditioned space was instantly and utterly consumed by the scent of pure, undiluted omega. This was not the cloying, floral sweetness that most people associated with a dynamic. This was a fragrance that was as vast and wild as the cosmos itself. It was the breathtaking, crystalline scent of a clear, cold night sky. It was the crisp, electric tang of summer ozone after a lightning storm. It was the impossibly sweet, ethereal glow of a billion distant stars, a scent of fierce intelligence, of profound wonder, and of a deep, heartbreaking loneliness that seemed to echo through the endless void. Draven froze mid-scroll. His head snapped up, his normally sharp eyes dilating into bottomless black pools as his primal alpha senses screamed at him, a deafening siren in his soul. For 7 long years, he had been haunted by a ghost, a memory from the fever dream of a meteor shower. He could never recall a face from that night, only a whirlwind of overwhelming sensation, a silhouette of impossible grace against the star-strewn sky. The only thing that had remained, the only thing that had burned itself into his memory with the permanence of a brand, was the scent. He had searched for it in every omega he encountered, a futile, maddening quest that had only carved his isolation deeper. He had almost convinced himself it was a fantasy, a phantom concocted by a lonely soul. And now it was here, in his elevator. It was real, overwhelming him, calling to a part of his soul he thought had turned to stone long ago. His own scent, a complex and potent blend of dark matter and burning embers, flared in an involuntary, possessive response. It was not a scent of aggression, but of profound, instinctual recognition. It was a tidal wave of territorial inquiry, a silent, rumbling demand that vibrated in the very air, a deep bass note that resonated with a single, unequivocal word of mine. The air grew thick, charged with a silent, primal conversation unfolding between their instincts. Draven turned, slowly, deliberately, his gaze locking onto the unassuming junior analyst who was now staring with rigid terror at the doors, his entire body humming with a desperate, suppressed tension. He looked him over, from the slightly tousled brown hair to the worn but clean shoes. There was nothing outwardly remarkable about him, nothing to suggest he could possess a scent so perfect, so powerful, it could bring an alpha of Draven Thornir Eurostrade-S caliber to his very knees. Scott felt the weight of that stare like a physical touch, a gravitational force pulling him apart atom by atom. He kept his eyes locked on the floor numbers, his knuckles bone white where he gripped the strap of his satchel. Don't look at him. Don't react. He doesn't know who you are. He can't know. The elevator chimed its arrival in the lobby. The doors slid open with agonizing slowness. The instant the gap was wide enough to slip through, Scott bolted. He didn't just walk, he fled, a comet streaking away from a sun that threatened to incinerate him, melting into the river of departing employees without a single backward glance. Draven remained rooted to the spot, his phone forgotten in his hand. He stared out into the bustling lobby, his senses reeling, his world reconfigured. He took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to capture the last lingering traces of that impossible, miraculous scent. It was real. It was in his building, and the hunt he had abandoned 7 years ago had just, with savage intensity, begun again. To understand how Scott, a man who had rebuilt his life from stardust and desperation, ended up in this terrifying predicament, we must rewind. Mornings in Scott's small two-bedroom apartment were not marked by the gentle rays of the sun, but by the chaotic, beautiful supernova of his 3 children. The day always began with the gentle thud of a small, determined body landing on his bed. "Papa," a solemn voice would announce, a tone far too serious for a 6-year-old. "The sun has entered the atmosphere. The productivity window is open." Scott would groan, pulling a pillow over his head. 5 more minutes, Aster. The pillow would be gently but inexorably lifted from his face by an unseen force, floating through the air to land neatly in a nearby armchair. He Eurostrade squint one eye open to see Aster standing there, a tiny titan in rocket ship pajamas, her arms crossed, a resolute frown etched on her face. Her dark curls were a gravity-defying halo around her head. "Procrastination is the enemy of progress," she would state, quoting one of the countless science documentaries she consumed like candy. "And sleep is the friend of sanity," Scott would mumble, forcing himself to sit up. He would immediately be flanked by his other 2 children. Brian, a perfect mirror image of Aster but with a mischievous glint in his eyes that promised chaos, would already be holding out a tablet. "Morning briefing," Orion would say briskly. "Weather is 74% sunny, optimal for playground deployment. Also, cereal levels are critical. We require an immediate resupply mission." Beside him, Star, the quietest and most soulful of the trio, would simply hold up a piece of paper. It was never a childish scribble, but a breathtakingly complex drawing of swirling nebulae and interconnected star systems, all rendered with uncanny precision in wax crayon. She would point to a large, bright star at the center of her cosmic tapestry. "The big star is sad today, Papa," she Eurostrade whisper, her wide, silver eyes full of a concern that felt ancient and profound. She Eurostrade lean in, wrapping her small arms around him, Her own sent a comforting, ethereal mix of milk and moonbeams. Scott's heart would always ache at that. Star's empathic senses were a cosmic barometer, and they were rarely wrong. He Eurostrayed de-force a smile, hugging her back tightly. The big star is just a little tired, sweet pea. Nothing a gallon of coffee can't fix. Breakfast was a controlled demolition. When Scott inevitably knocked over the carton of orange juice, Astor would simply hold out a hand, her brow furrowed in concentration. The golden liquid would suspend itself in a shimmering, globular mass for a breathtaking second before flowing obediently back into the carton. "I don't want the green things," Orion would declare, pointing a spoon accusingly at the spinach Scott had cleverly hidden in his scrambled eggs. With a flicker of concentration, the green flecks in his portion would shimmer and transform, suddenly looking and smelling exactly like crispy, delicious bacon bits. Scott would raise an eyebrow. "Nice try, illusionist. Eat your spinach." Brian would sigh with the dramatic flair of a seasoned actor but comply, his bacon illusion wavering with every reluctant spoonful. Across the table, Star would be meticulously arranging her toast points into the shape of the Pleiades star cluster. She never used her powers for flashy tricks. Hers were quieter, more profound. She felt the universe's emotional echoes, and sometimes it felt like the universe whispered its secrets back to her. This was their life. A tiny apartment that Scott had painstakingly transformed into a loving, private galaxy for his 3 impossible, miraculous children. 7 years ago, his own world had imploded. He had been the brilliant Omega prodigy of the celebrated Finch academic family, a rising star destined for greatness. Then one night, everything changed. A night spent under a meteor shower, a fleeting, desperate, and beautiful collision with a powerful, unknown alpha. The resulting pregnancy was a scandal his prestigious family deemed unforgivable. His mentor and stepbrother, Alistair, had been the one to deliver the final, soul-crushing blow. He had publicly denounced Scotter Eurostrade's groundbreaking the Caesar Euros his Lither Eurostrade's work on sourcing quantum energy from cosmic background radiation Euros as unsubstantiated, fanciful nonsense. It was the perfect excuse they needed. Scott was cast out, disowned, and effectively erased from the family annals, left with nothing but a meager trust fund and the crushing weight of their betrayal. He had rebuilt himself from the ashes. He took on freelance data analysis work, his fingers flying across keyboards late into the night while his babies slept in borrowed cribs, their soft, rhythmic breaths the only music that kept him going. They were his universe now. His past was a collapsed star, a black hole of pain, but they were his new, brighter constellation. Everything he did, every sacrifice he made, was for them. That morning, while the triplets were engrossed in building a surprisingly accurate model of the TRAPPIST-1 system out of sofa cushions and a very patient house cat, Scott allowed himself a moment of peace. He scrolled through the science and technology news feed, sipping his now lukewarm coffee. A headline snagged his attention, pulling the air from his lungs with the force of a vacuum. Astra Corp unveils Project Chimera's a quantum leap in clean energy. His finger trembled as he tapped the link. The article was a cascade of corporate praise and revolutionary claims, accompanied by a picture of Astra Corp Eurostrade's CEO, Draven Thorne. But Scotter Eurostrade's eyes scanned past the handsome, severe face, searching for the technical details. He found the abstract for the core technology, a small block of text at the bottom of the page, and his blood turned to ice. A circumflex Euros utilizing a proprietary method of harmonizing quantum foam with cosmic microwave background radiation to generate a stable, no limitless energy Saucer Euros. The words blurred, the letters rearranging themselves into the sentences he had written, bled over, and perfected 7 years ago. The unique harmonic frequencies, the specific approach to quantum entanglement to Euros, it was all there, his intellectual fingerprint smeared across their triumphant announcement. And then he saw it, the name, printed in bold as the mind behind the breakthrough, the celebrated consultant who had made it all possible, Dr. Alastair Finch. A low, wounded sound escaped Scotter Eurostrade's throat, sharp and pained. The very air in the apartment seemed to crackle, a sudden drop in pressure. His scent, usually a calm and subtle blend of starlight and summer ozone, spiked with a sharp, electric tang of a building lightning stormer. Euros, the unmistakable scent of a distressed, cornered Omega. The children felt it instantly. The cushion planet Trappist 1G wobbled and tumbled to the floor. The cat, suddenly released from Astra Eurostrade's gentle gravitational hold, scurried under the sofa. In a blink, all three were by his side, their small faces a triptych of grave concern. Astra placed a firm, grounding hand on his knee. Rhina Eurostrade's playful demeanor vanished, replaced by a fierce, protective scowl as he tried to read the screen. Star, sensing the deep, raw well of his pain, wrapped her arms around his waist and buried her face in his shirt, trying to absorb the hurt with her entire being. Papa, Astra's voice was soft, but it cut through the haze of his agony. He couldn't speak. The betrayal felt as fresh and raw as it had 7 years prior. They had taken everything from him, Euros, his home, his name, his future Euros, and left him to drift in the cold emptiness of space. He had assumed their Eurostrade simply discarded his work, another casualty of their cruelty. But they hadn't discarded it. They had stolen it, held onto it, and sold it to the highest bidder. Brian squinted at the tablet. "That's the bad man," he hissed, pointing a small, indignant finger at Alastair Eurostrade's smirking face. "The one who made you cry." Star looked up, her silver eyes shimmering with unshed tears that mirrored his own. "The big star is broken," she whispered, but her small voice was fierce. "Don't be broken, Papa. We'll fix it." Looking at their face, Euros, Astra Eurostrade's unwavering resolve, Rhina Eurostrade's simmering anger, Star Eurostrade's profound empathy, Euros, Scotter Eurostrade's sorrow began to cool, crystallizing into something hard and sharp as obsidian. They hadn't just stolen his past. They had stolen his children's future. The legacy that should have been theirs, the resources that could have given them a better life, had been built on his stolen genius. He took a deep, shuddering breath, pulling his children into a tight, fierce embrace. The chaotic storm in his scent receded, replaced by the steady, focused, white-hot glow of a distant star preparing to go supernova. "You're right," he said, his voice low but clear, resonating with a newfound strength that surprised even him. "You're absolutely right." He looked down at the tablet, at the glass and steel tower of Astra Corp, at the face of the man who had stolen his stars. "We'll fix it. I'm going to get my stars back." That night, long after Scott had fallen into an exhausted sleep, the triplets convened their own war council. The moon cast long shadows across their bedroom floor, illuminating their makeshift command center, a circle of pillows on the rug. Brian, the self-appointed mission commander, had his tablet propped against a stuffed dinosaur, projecting a shimmering, three-dimensional schematic of the Astra Corp tower onto the wall. "Enemy-based Astra Corp," he whispered, his face lit by the eerie blue glow. He pointed a finger at the penthouse floor. Papar's stars are being held captive in the server room, right here. Mission objective: retrieve them. Aster, the mission's enforcer, nodded grimly. She was polishing a small, smooth river rock, making it hover and spin an inch above her palm with intense concentration. Priority 1 is securing Papa Eurostrade's work, she stated. But there is a secondary objective. She tapped the projection. Neutralize the bad guy. Star, the mission's heart and soul, was quiet. Her attention wasn't on the schematic or the picture of Alistair. It was on the photos Orion had pulled up of the Astra Corp executive board. Her small finger traced the outline of the CEO, Draven Fawn. He was handsome, with dark hair, sharp features, and intense eyes that seemed to see right through the screen. There was an aura of immense power around him, but something else, too. A hollow space, a deep loneliness that resonated with a similar ache deep inside her own being. He's the Alpha in charge, Orion explained, zooming in on Draven's photo. The big boss. Alistair tricked him. The bad guy is a liar. The big boss is a a complication. Star reached out and pressed her palm flat against Draven's face on the tablet. A jolt of euros, warm and golden and deeply, cosmically familiar euros, shot up her arm. It was a feeling she Eurostrade only ever experienced in fragments, a missing harmony to their family's song. It was the scent of dark matter and burning embers, a scent she knew in her bones without ever having smelled it. It was safety. It was strength. It was the other half of their own cosmic energy, the gravitational pull of a second sun. Her eyes went wide with wonder. It's him, she breathed, her voice filled with an unshakable, celestial certainty. He's not collateral. He's the other big star. She looked at her siblings, her silver eyes glowing with the force of her revelation. Our star daddy. Aster and Orion froze, staring at her. The hovering river rock dropped to the rug with a soft thud. They never questioned Star's feelings. Her cosmic empathy was their family's true north. If Star said this man was their father, then it was an immutable fact of the universe. The mission parameters shifted instantly, the objective expanding exponentially. Aster's protective frown deepened. If he's our dad, why did he let the bad guy steal Papar's stars? He's supposed to be smart. Maybe he doesn't know, Orion countered, his fingers flying across the tablet. Let's see your euros. These articles say he's a recluse, works all the time. He hasn't been publicly seen with an Omega in over 7 years. He pulled up a timeline. He took over as CEO 7 years and 3 months ago. The timeline fits. The bad guy must have sold him the research right when he took over. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Alistair hadn't just stolen Scott's work, he had used it to launch his own career by selling it to a powerful new Alpha CEO who would have no reason to question its origin. This changes everything, Orion whispered, his expression turning deadly serious. The mission isn't just about getting the stars back anymore. It's a family reunion. He looked at his sisters, a slow, mischievous grin spreading across his face. Okay, team. Operation Star Daddy is a go. Phase 1: infiltrate the enemy base. We have to get Papar inside. The creation of Stefan Brard took the better part of an hour and involved intense whispered debate over what constituted a believably bland persona. They constructed a digital life for their fictional creation, building social media profiles with stock photos of mountains and charts. The final step was the application itself. Okay, Orion announced. Papar's resume is in the system, but there are hundreds of others. We need to make sure the right people see it, and fast. For the next few hours, their shared bedroom became a mission control center. Miles away, an HR manager for Astra Corp was about to close her laptop for the night when it suddenly overheated, the fan whirring with an unnatural intensity before shutting down completely. With a frustrated sigh, she rebooted. The system reset brought one application to the top of her queue, flagged by a phantom system error. Stefan Broad. In the triplets command center, Asta relaxed her invisible telekinetic grip on the tiny components of the laptop's internal fan. The manager was impressed by the candidate's quiet brilliance. She dragged the file into the first-round interview folder. Orion watched the file move. "Okay, he's in the pool," he whispered. "Now for a little push." He slipped into the automated scheduling system, found a recently cancelled interview slot for the following morning, and with a few keystrokes, linked it to Stefan Broad's file, tagging it with a ghost flag from the Sir Eurostrade's office that would ensure it went unquestioned. An email pinged on Scott Eurostrade's phone the next morning. By lunchtime, having aced the technical questions, he was hired. His first day at Astra Corp was a master class in self-control. Dressed in the bland uniform of Stefan Broad, he was the epitome of average. The tower was a monument to corporate power, sleek and intimidating. And all day, Scott felt the low-level hum of a powerful, dominant alpha presence permeating the building. It was a background radiation he tried desperately to ignore, a constant, subliminal reminder of Draven Fawn. By 5 o'clock, his nerves were frayed. He had successfully installed the backdoor into the Compania Eurostrade's network, but the constant vigilance was exhausting. All he wanted was to escape, which led him to the executive elevator, and to a fateful encounter that would change everything. The next few weeks at Astra Corp were a high-wire act for Scott. By day, he was Stefan Broad, a ghost in the corporate machine. By night, he was a digital phantom, using the backdoor Orion had created to meticulously map out the company's network. Searching for the original data transfer logs from 7 years ago or the digital smoking gun that would prove Alastair Eurostrade's theft. But the files were buried deep, protected by layers of security that would take him months, if not years, to crack on his own. "I need to get into the central archive," he explained to the triplets one evening over dinner. "It's a physically sealed room in the sublevels. The servers there are air-gapped from the main network. The logs I need have to be on those servers. But it requires level 7 clearance. I'm only level 2. The triplets exchanged a swift, silent glance. Operation Star Daddy was moving to Phase 2 active support. "We can help," Aster said, her tone as serious as a seasoned general's. "No," Scott said immediately, his voice sharp. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. I forbid it." He saw the glint in Orion's eye, the stubborn set of Aster's jaw. He knew with the sinking certainty of a parent that they were not going to listen. Of course, they didn't. 2 days later, Scott found himself walking behind Draven Thorn in a sterile corridor. He saw the danger before anyone else, a heavy maintenance cart being wheeled out of a service closet directly into Draven's path. Before Scott could shout he felt a strange, subtle shift in the air, a faint thrum of energy. From a hiding spot down the hall, Aster held her breath, focusing her entire being on the Carter Eurostrade's local gravitational field. The cart, which weighed several hundred pounds, suddenly became as light as a feather. The technician, expecting resistance, shoved it forward with all his might. Instead of rolling, it flew, sailing past Draven with inches to spare before clattering back to the ground. That's the third inexplicable equipment malfunction this week, Draven growled, a flicker of profound confusion on his face. His sharp gaze swept the hall, and his eyes met Scott's for a split second. Scott looked away, his blood running cold. He knew what had just happened. He shot a furious, panicked glare toward the doorway where he could just make out a flash of a pink sneaker disappearing around the corner. The children, however, were just getting started. Their successful intervention had only emboldened them. 2 days later, Scott hit another wall of euros, a literal one. The specific data he needed was on a server in a small secondary lab, and the keycard reader blinked a mocking, unforgiving red at his low-level clearance card. As he was about to give up, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Look busy. 5 seconds." He frowned, then pretended to check his messages. A moment later, he heard the squeak of rubber soles on linoleum. 2 security guards were rounding the corner. Scotter Eurostrade's stomach dropped. Loitering outside a restricted lab was a fireable offense, and he was caught red-handed. The story of how Scott, a brilliant Omega scientist, found himself at the heart of the very corporation that had ruined him is a tale of betrayal, desperation, and the extraordinary power of family. And now, with a formidable alpha who haunts his past and holds the key to his future growing more suspicious by the day, Scotter Eurostrade's mission has become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more dangerous. What do you think will happen now that Draven has caught Scott's scent? Is there any way for him to maintain his cover? Let us know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this cosmic love story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more tales of fated love and impossible odds, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next thrilling chapter.